Take a seat. Give us a moment of quiet so I can introduce what we're doing tonight. Going once. Thank you, much appreciated. We apologize. I know it's a little crowded tonight. We apologize for that. And we want to thank you for that. I also want to apologize because we have multiple technologies working tonight. There are people on Zoom. This thing is called an owl. It actually will focus on the various speakers. My name is Dennis Doyle. I'm the planning director for the county, and I want to welcome everybody here. I want to introduce people that have been working on the stream management plan as we have this conversation for the Lower Esopus. In particular, I wanted to introduce the county planning staff that are here tonight. Bert Samuelson. Bert, you're in the back of the room. Thank you so much. Bert's been with us from the beginning on this plan. Ben Gannon from the Department of Environment. You'll hear Ben later talk about give you the brief overview of the stream management plan. We also have members of the task force that has helped us guide the plan. Those include Mary McNamara. I see Mary in the back of the room. We also have Teresa Dornato and Ann Bloom. Also, and Essie. I'm sorry, Essie. I saw you standing back here and I didn't mention them from the county executive's office. Jake. Hi, Jake. Why is it that the county staff is in the back of the room? And I'm in the front of the room. That's good. I'm wondering that. I want to bring up Veronica from the
Language Justice Collective.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronica and along with my compee Maria, we are the interpreters for this event. This event is going to be interpreted to Spanish and English. So we ask you that if you're not fully bilingual, come to the back to the table and we have some equipment for you. Somos María y Verónica del colectivo de justicia del lenguaje. Vamos a hacer interpretación entre español e inglés y les pedimos que si no son bilingües pasen atrás a la mesa por equipo. Tenemos unas señales para que podamos tener una junta buena el día de hoy. Si necesitamos que hablen un poquito más lento, vamos a hacer esta señal. Y si nos ven hacerla, por favor, háganla con nosotros. If we need that the presenters speaks a little slower, we're going to use this sign. If you see us doing it through the presentation, please help us do it. Because sometimes they won't see us. Si necesitamos que hablen un poquito más alto, vamos a usar esa señal. And likewise, if we need you, the presenter, to speak a little louder, we're going to use this sign. If you see us doing it, please help us do it. Les pedimos que solamente una persona hable a la vez. Una persona, un mic. One person only at a time. One mic, one person. Eso es todo. So, de nuevo, si necesitan equipo, estamos acá atrás. Again, if you need equipment, please come see us over here in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Much appreciated. Again, my name is Dennis Doyle. Is there anyone from the committee that I left out? Well, that's good.
What, Teresa?
I said Teresa.
You did.
I said
Okay.
Teresa. Yeah, I think I got the folks from the farm club.
And me.
Kristen, you know why? You weren't in the back of the room.
Yeah,
If you were in the back of the room, it would have worked out better. My apologies. Kristen is a deputy planning director for the county and has been an instrumental in setting this up. And it's not a small task to set something like this up. If I can get the next slide, please. So I've done my part. But I just wanted to tell you where the stream management plan came from, and I'm going to try to be very quick about that. Stream management plan came out of something called an order on consent. And that order on consent was issued by the Department of Environmental Conservation. They set money aside for the county to be essentially put together and lead a stream management plan effort. The stream management plan is connected to the releases on the Lower Esopus, but not on a regulatory basis. You'll see some recommendations of projects relative to flooding and work with that in terms of the project. And the stream management plan is designed to essentially try to look at all of the things that are occurring on the Lower Esopus and how best to address them. And what you're going to see is the county this is the third public event relative to the stream management plan. We've done a survey, we've had a workshop, we've done a complete inventory of the stream. And tonight's focus is literally on trying to look at the 42 projects that grew out of the stream management plan and set priorities for those projects in terms of what you folks think are the most important things to do. Not the end of the process, but certainly an ascension in terms of implementing these programs. It'll give us a lot of guidance with respect to that. I'm done. I'm going to turn it over to Ben Gannon from the Department of Environment, who's going to lead you through an overview of the stream management plan itself before we get to a discussion of the actual project. So thank you again for coming. And again, our apologies for the crowded conditions.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, great. So like Dennis mentioned, thank you, Dennis. My name is Ben. I work with the county's Department of the Environment. I'm well familiar with the Lower Esopus. I've been working on the Lower Esopus for quite a number of years now. So this is just going to be a really quick overview of the creek, and an overview of the plan and how we got here, kind of project specific. So, just a thank you to our project team. We've got consultants that you'll hear from later, an international river restoration firm called Interfluve. And we work with Arch Street Communications and Boomi Environmental, on some PR stuff and some more technical detailed modeling. And just again, thank you to the advisory council, whose organizations are listed here. We really couldn't make it through the project without you, and really appreciate your guidance. So we'll breeze through a quick overview. We'll just get ourselves spatially oriented. This is the entire Esopus watershed. You can see the big reservoir right in the middle that essentially cuts the Esopus Creek into two different sections. We lovingly focus on the lower Esopus Creek, which upstream, the furthest upstream you can go is the Ashokan Dam. And so this plan and this whole process is really focused on underneath that dam. So for planning purposes, we broke the stream corridor into 3 valley segments. We're going to do a quick overview of each of these, and turning this project into actual implementation. This is how we follow the delineation, where when we look at projects, we have watershed-wide projects, and then we have projects that are specific to either a management zone or a valley reach. And so each of these valley reaches here are unique. The first one, starting from the Hudson River, we've got mixed land use, some development in the floodplain, and really this section is defined by bedrock controls, which you'll see a couple of photos of. But starting all the way in the northern end, we've got a tidal portion, which is pretty unique. The Hudson River is tidal all the way up to Albany. And so having a freshwater tidal system is definitely a unique aspect of the lower Esopus Creek. And so that tidal portion is cut off by the Diamond Mills Dam arteries, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. The Diamond Mills Dam is actually built on a bedrock shelf, and what those bedrock walls do is they tend to impound water. And so this section, you can see bedrock gorges, these bedrock grade controls, another one at Legs Mills. And so the impoundment kind of creates these long pools, which tend to slow down water and trap sediment. Let's see. Also, throughout this reach, we've got a really low slope, which tends to accumulate large wood material. So if anybody's ever paddled out there, you'll see these big wood jams. And that's definitely a factor of just the morphology of the area. The other thing that's unique to this section is a pretty common urban interface. It runs through Kingston and the town of Ulster and the village of Saugerties. So there's a lot of urban infrastructure that interacts with the creek. So valley segment number 2, everybody knows this is the Hurley Flats. Really nice section of stream. The big story here actually are these big historic gravel mines. And so I'm sure that everybody's driven on 209 and seen these big pools, which are really unique. You have maybe 100-foot stream channel that opens up into a 500-foot plus lake, which has pretty big impacts on water quality in the stream in general. But otherwise, it's got a really nice kind of pool riffle morphology. It's a super nice section. So the third valley segment is really the foothills of the Catskills, and so typical of that, pretty forested, natural land cover. The story here is that it's got a bit of a different sediment regime where it's really boulder, and cobble dominated, with a lot of the fine sediments kind of being found further downstream because the reservoir traps a lot of those fine sediments. So it's almost like sediment starved, as far as the smaller particles go. The other things that we've kind of picked out in this section is that there are a couple of slope failures. These big kind of bedrock walls, some natural waterfalls, a lot of nice riffles, and then the dam up at the Shokan Center. And then right where the spillway comes into the Esopus, there is a pretty large eroding bluff. So it's one of the things that we're focused on. Okay, so just a quick project overview. We broke this project into 4 main sections. One is really the outreach, the engagement with the communities and you all really. Just to figure out what the community vision is for the plan and how can we incorporate that and moving forward and kind of couple the vision with the science, and land on a really good plan. The technical aspect kind of comes along in the second section where we did a really detailed data analysis, figured out what reports exist, and kind of generated this really comprehensive analysis of existing conditions, and then followed that up with a 1-week intensive where a bunch of professional river scientists actually assessed the entire creek corridor from the dam all the way to the Hudson River to really inventory what stream features are there, where are the issues, and maybe in the field, try to come up with some projects that they would see that benefit the creek. We take all of that information and we try to wrap it up into a stream management plan. And the plan really sets just the community's vision for the future based on that scientific input. And really the second phase of the stream management plan is what we're all here for tonight, which is the implementation plan. That's a list of projects that we're proposing that we see having the greatest benefit to the creek. So your feedback is going to be essential on kind of carrying this forward, determining what's popular and where we should focus efforts. So I know Dennis touched on it, but I really just wanted to end my section here just with a quick overview of our engagement with everybody here and people you know and other people in the community. So we released a survey to really get that initial vision for the planning process, and last summer we received almost 300 responses, which is incredible for a local government. We had a sunny Thursday morning walk shop event where we went and actually visited a site on the creek at the Marbletown Town Park and had about 70 people show up there. In December, we had a workshop to review the draft stream management plan, and really get some comments back and feedback on the draft plan, where we had 120 plus people registered. And I just wanted to end with today, where we had over 230 people register, including everybody here in person. We're also running a hybrid meeting, so thank you to everybody on Zoom. And just a really big thank you for just being engaged in this planning process and working with us through these really complex issues. So, you all are a major part of how we're here and really taking this forward. So just thanking you, everybody here, and listening in. So that wraps it up for me. We're just gonna take a couple of seconds. Our consultants are gonna tune in at this point, and walk us through some of the projects that we're proposing before we kind of break and then go and get to talk to folks. So Andrea and Marty.
Maybe what we can do is stop share for a minute and they can just introduce themselves.
Make sure
So
we're
people
in.
can see them.
All right. Let's see. All right, I'm sharing the screen. Yeah, can you get in there? Yeah. Actually. Yeah.
There.
Perfect. Okay, Andrea and Marty, I think you're good to take it away, and then let me know when you want to start slides, but.
Yeah, I thought maybe you could just introduce yourselves first, and now everybody in the room can see you. And then we'll start the share of the slides again, and you can start with the presentation. So go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Andrea Judge. I'm a senior water resources engineer with Interfluve, and I'm located in New England. Ready?
My name is Marty Melcher. Some of you I may have met at the Marbletown public meeting, but I'm a geomorphologist and river ecologist with Interfluve. I've been doing river restoration for 30 years now.
All right, great. So I'll just go ahead and share the screen again. And then we'll kick it off.
So Andrea, you'll just need to say next, and then we'll hit the next slide.
You bet. So I think Marty and I were gonna alternate between the two of us, but I can kick things off to describe the projects that we've identified through this phase. These were developed based on feedback that we received during the workshop and discussions with the partners, with the county and others as well. Next slide, please. And I think there's some, I think you have to keep going because there's some animations that are baked in here. So as we were developing these activities, these are the concepts and our goals that we identified. So these are the reoccurring themes that we'll see throughout the discussion of the implementation program. So they're improving the water quality, enhancing the stream function, promoting the floodplain management, and supporting the ecosystem diversity, and really promoting and encouraging recreation. So bringing people to the creek, having them have the opportunity to play and engage with the local communities as well. And next slide, please. So through all of our activities that we identified, there's a lot of opportunities to intermingle these benefits, and that process of identifying these activities and then identifying how they would relate to each of these benefits, that all went into, we did a prioritization where if the implementation projects would provide these benefits, they were ranked accordingly. And then other factors we considered as well was environmental justice, population benefits, climate resiliency, and the cost as well. Next slide, please. So we had identified, I think after our December meeting, there was, I believe, on the order of 30 projects, and that's continued to expand. And so we're going to go through 40 or so projects. A lot of them have similar themes, but we have a lot of ground to cover. So we can jump right in. So through the evening, and I think towards the facilitated discussions, we developed essentially 3 segments, 3 overviews of the valley. Now, for orientation purposes, this is the Hudson River over on the lower right-hand side, and these are the activities that are near the head of tide. We are gonna jump a little bit ahead, but you can see next to each of the activities, they're numbered. The numbers on the map correspond to these projects, and we have related them to the benefits of the shared vision, which we discussed. So that's improving water quality, reducing the flood risk, ecosystem health, promoting recreation and local communities. So the icons match up. Next slide, please. And then this is the middle of the valley segment. So towards the Hurley Flats area and the gravel pits. And we're at this point moving towards the Ashokan Reservoir. Next slide, please. And then this is the head of the lower Esopus Creek watershed. So now we can take some time to expand a little bit on some of the activities. So these are, we're now grouping them in terms of the goals. Okay, so these are collectively the projects across the watershed that we've identified as far as promoting recreation. These offer opportunities for people to interact with the creek, to play and explore. So this, starting off with the motorized watercraft outreach, this task it's engaging our local community and promoting recreation goals. And so what this involves is outreach really towards the Hudson River and the Tidal Flats area to promote motorized watercraft use that's compatible with the conditions out there. So wakes can erode banks and stir up sediment. So we would want to alter that behavior. Moving on with the Tidewater Center. Now, this is a project that expands upon master planning that had already been done at the park, and it provides public access to the water. And that's a project that involves expanding walkways. Marty, you want to address these other projects that are kind of further up the watershed?
Sure. I think we can move the slides ahead, right? Some of them get tackled. Yeah, public access. So, between Leggs Mill and Glenary Falls, there's really no public access. And so I think the closest takeout is at the ball field upstream. And so, trying, maybe making an effort in the future here to work with either landowners or railroad or other entities to try and develop portage access, just creating more places where people can get in and out, even just to view, not necessarily to move boats around, but for just accessing those areas for viewing, fishing, etc. Next slide.
So this is the Tidewater Center. There's a lot of programming that goes on here for the community. So really our activity here is centering around the, as I mentioned before, the master planning of this public access that's already been designed and permitted. And then that's a shovel ready. That's an opportunity for a shovel ready project. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so there are, obviously a lot of the erosion issues are upstream of the reservoir, but there are some issues downstream too. And bluffs, for instance, in a lot of watersheds, even though they're small and relative to the size of the watershed, they can produce a lot of sediment. In some cases, bluff erosion can account for anywhere from 20 to 50% of sediment in my experience. And so a bluff really, if you go to the next slide, when we talk about bluffs, actually you can go to the next one too. I'll maybe handle this one, Andrea, and then I'll come back. I think the bluffs are after that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Marty. So with respect to stormwater management as it relates to water quality, some of the concerns with that, without, I guess, adequately addressing runoff, is that sediment, pollutants can enter into the stream, and there were several areas where the built infrastructure was directly abutting the stream that were observed through the field assessment phase. And so what we had advised in several regions or several segments of the stream were implementing best management practices for stormwater. And these activities can range anywhere from stenciling the grates, as you see here, just to remind people not to discharge waste or oil into the storm drains, but it can also include pavement removal, developing grassy swales or detention basins, or even proprietary systems that can remove grit and oil before discharging into the lower Esopus Creek. And specifically where we had identified areas where the built infrastructure was interacting directly with the creek and where there was a potential to implement best management practices were in the village of Saugerties and the Stockade District and Saugerties South and around the Lake Katrine area. Next slide, please.
So, again, you know, the upstream tributaries obviously contributing much of the turbidity to the system, but there are areas downstream too. And so tackling some of those tributaries that are inputting fines into the system through, you know, prevention of channel incision and bank stabilization is something that can be included in future work. This one coming in at the Esopus Bend Nature Preserve is just one example. Next slide. So bluffs, I was gonna define what a bluff is, but so really simply, you know, when we're thinking about geomorphology anyway, a bank is a bank that's on an active floodplain, so they're generally lower. When the floods come up, water can spill over those. Bluffs are older floodplain surfaces from previous floodplains that are now abandoned, so they're typically a lot higher, and they contribute a lot more sediment just because they get undermined at the bottom, and then they can waste a lot of material all at once into the system. And so this one at the Spillway Bluff, stabilization of these things is typically just stabilizing the toe. You don't really need to spend money grading the top of the bluff, because once you shut off the erosion at the bottom and give that a little bit of room to fail, it'll eventually reach an angle of repose and stop. And then vegetation sort of creeps up the upper part of the slope. You can see it doing it already on the left side of the eroding area there. Next slide. Marbletown Park. Some of you probably remember we had a discussion on site about this, and heard some anecdotal stories about you know, past use of this area and the retreat of the banks kind of movement toward the shore that's nearest in the picture here. And so it's one area where, you know, generally speaking, you know, this lower part of this watershed is very stable. Like the banks are very stable. There are areas where it's mechanically stabilized by either seawalls or riprap, things like that. Or it's just areas where you have more gentle slopes and a lot of mature vegetation, big trees growing on the slopes. So as far as big watersheds go and fairly big rivers with a big watershed drainage area, this river is pretty stable. There are, however, a few places where you have cut banks and a little bit of erosion. And this one here has a lot of foot traffic too, and so there are ways to stabilize this particular area where you can preserve that kind of gentle slope so people can access that area, and also just kind of keep it from moving toward the road. So, next slide. Yeah, so buffers first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the last two there, but go ahead to the next slide. There are several areas, and this really applies to anywhere in the where you are in the watershed, right? So buffers are good. The bigger the buffer, the better. They, especially in this case, forested ecosystems, they do a lot to filter out materials. So water coming in from rainfall from the side slopes, the rest of the valley, gets better absorbed into the ground, contributes to groundwater recharge better, filters out nutrients. Grassy buffers do this also. Forested buffers are better at it. And the forested buffers also shade rivers, and this river it's small enough where a forested canopy actually has an effect on cooling of the system. And they create migration corridors too that are really important for just the national flyway, birds migrating up and down, and then also wildlife too. Use those. I know when I canoed this, I canoed the whole river and kayaked it, and saw a lot of wildlife that really surprised me, that I didn't expect to see bears and raccoons and coyotes and things. So it's pretty nice to see that forested corridor preserved for most of the watershed. But anything that can be done to improve that is good. So I realize there are competing land uses there. We can't grow crops in a forest, so but and we met with the farm and other folks, and they're doing a pretty good job of doing what they can and balancing those needs. So just keeping going on that effort. I think the watershed gets a B+ or an A already in that category, but there's always more can be added. Next slide. Meandering, just an example. We do this all the time. Restore rivers, meanders to areas that have been channelized and straightened. And the pictures on the right just showing a project in Massachusetts in a really low gradient wetlands environment, but in the bottom land of a big river, you can do it in there too. It's just obviously a bigger project, right? And so again, we have competing interests. We're smart enough to realize that remeandering the entire ditch section of lower Esopus is counterproductive for a lot of people, agriculturally especially. And so those are kind of off the table, but there are areas where maybe land ownership will change in the future, or areas where the gravel pits are, for instance, where you do have some room in areas that are already wetland, not being farmed, that could contribute to at least partial meander restoration and restoring those areas. I'll talk a little bit later about gravel pits in a little more detail. Just something to chew on a little bit. Next slide. I'm gonna hand that back over to you, Andrea, if you don't mind.
Bet. Thanks. So with regards to the FEMA flood insurance study, one of the initiatives that's included in our plan involves reviewing the mapping that was done at the time. So the analysis was completed, I believe, sometime in the 80s, and it has been updated throughout the time, but FEMA no longer recognizes the calculation methodology that was used to determine where the floodplain is. And in addition to that, questions have been raised regarding additional flood risk related to the releases that are done through the spillway from the western reservoir of the Ashokan Reservoir. So while the reservoir does offer a flood retention benefit, that's really important. And, you know, again, this is the push and the pull of having the necessary infrastructure to maintain communities and the way that we live. But the purpose of reevaluating the flood insurance study would be to evaluate additional flood risk associated with the way that the reservoir is currently operated. That may not have been operated at the same time as when this flood insurance study was done. So one of the activities involves reviewing the calculations and the mapping as well. And then for certified floodplain manager initiative, this one would involve every municipality, you know, promoting and supporting the municipalities in the county to have on staff a certified floodplain manager. And the benefits of that are relate to reviewing you know, applications to the local boards and a cohesive management throughout the watershed of the floodplain. Maybe can we jump ahead a slide? Please. Oh, okay, yeah, we can go back and then Marty will take that again. I wanted to speak a little bit about the Saugerties Village local flood analysis. So this activity in particular involves reviewing flood risk associated at the Canteen Dam or the Diamond Mills Dam. That barrier, while it's built on bedrock, it still has a potential to alter the way that sediment is released through the channel and stored impoundment that can potentially affect the temperature in the stream in that reach. So what we would propose to do as far as a flood analysis there would be to evaluate potential benefits or effects of altering that dam, and that could involve lowering it so that it may store less of an impoundment. It could involve removal or, you know, other alternatives as well, including maintaining fish passage or providing it, and also just evaluating how the stream functions could be related to changes at that dam. Next slide.
Yeah, we can go ahead to the next slide. I'm just going to talk a little bit about invasives and yeah, keep going. So I always say, you know, rivers have two jobs. One is to move water and the other one is to move sediment. And as you all know, there are areas of the lower Esopus where sediment moves through pretty readily. And then there are other areas where it doesn't. And, you know, you've got the natural grade controls there with the outcrops that create some pretty long sections of low gradient stream. And those are naturally depositional. You've also got a history of channelization there and the gravel pit mining. And so and the dam. And so these all kind of combine to create a different sort of mosaic of sediment deposition. And in those areas where you have a lot of fines, you get, you know, things like milfoil and curly leaf and other vegetation growing that is normally not part of a river ecosystem. So certainly river ecosystems, especially the riparian areas, have their share of invasive plants on the East Coast, but you know, rivers that flow unabated generally have fewer submergent aquatic plants. So the best way to combat some of that is to just make sure that the sediment transport regime is functioning properly. One way to do that is to remove dams, of course. And the other would be to restore the sediment transport through the areas that can transport it. So not a whole lot you can do about sediment depositing upstream of, say, Leggs Mill or Glen Falls, but there are things that can be done to change the cross-sectional area in those areas too. I can talk about those later, but the big thing with downstream sections is, of course, Phragmites, giant reedgrass is really the biggest invasive problem that I think in the United States that we have today. There's so many of them now. When I started working in this field, there was a couple. Reed canary grass, of course, covers the entire Midwest with every wetland has really been taken over by it. Purple loosestrife used to be a big deal. It's really peanuts compared to what Phragmites can do and reed canary grass, but and invasive cattails, got a lot of other plants. And so if you want to tackle them, they require constant maintenance. So diligence and just a really coordinated plan is what's necessary. Phragmites removal in the lower part, really, the way to do that is a combination of excavating the root material and then also spraying it. The Great Lakes areas up in Toronto, for instance, in Ontario, have had pretty good luck. Removing Phragmites on a hectare level with just spraying. They've developed some techniques there that work pretty well, but it's a big challenge, and but it's something that can be part of a management plan that just is always something that is worked on. Next slide. The gravel mine locations. So these are areas where, we've sort of created sediment traps essentially, where fines can drop out. And there are areas where you could potentially get some meanders partially restored, right? It would require a fair amount of earth moving, and could help to create some pretty low floodplain wetland areas. If you reduce the amount of open water and create more of a riverine environment, lowers water temperatures, better for the native fish community. And you can also encourage native riparian vegetation in those areas that are restored. So that could be and should be a long-term goal of restoration in this watershed. There are really some pretty great opportunities to do that. And the federal government and other people give you money to do that, which is great. So next slide. Forest corridor conservation. So like I said before, the buffers, especially in the upper part, just downstream of the reservoir, pretty good. There's really not a lot of development up there, and forested buffers are great when you're in rivers that are in terms of providing habitat in the form of large wood. So large wood falling into the creek creates complexity, local scour pools. It can cause sediment to deposit in different ways and creates a lot of good habitat. That said, there are road crossings in the system too, and so when logs pile up against those, that's not a good thing. And so there needs to be a management plan that going forward takes that into account, and you can do things like actually adding other wood that's engineered that holds some of that wood in place, and then just really keeping a healthy forested riparian corridor also helps to prevent a lot of wood movement downstream. Next slide. So, tops on the list in terms of geomorphic assessment and scientific analysis going forward, Sawkill and Platkill. So those watersheds make up roughly half of the lower Esopus Creek area, watershed area. And we really didn't get, as part of this phase, the opportunity to look at those in detail. And so future plans should include a geomorphic assessment of those two watersheds and all the tributaries that contribute to them, looking at erosion and potential for projects up in those watersheds too. I don't know, did you want to tackle some of these other ones, Andrea?
Yeah, sure. How, I guess, Kristen, how are we for time? Because I think we're nearing the end of our segment. So I think I wanted to speak a little bit about the waterfront.
I think just a few more minutes.
Okay.
And if you we can wrap it up in just a few more minutes. So yeah, maybe 2 or 3 more minutes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think one other area as far as engaging local communities in this group of goals in the implementation program. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so the Kingston waterfront area. So this is also one of the more densely developed segments of this next to the stream. I think in particular in our stream management plan, we noted the Kingston Plaza. There seemed like a lot of potential here to provide waterfront access and more opportunities for people in the community to be able to engage with the stream here. So what this would involve would be a master planning activity to see what dive a little bit deeper into what opportunities are there to provide access. And then, I think the other activities that we had as far as engaging local communities, these are, I think these are really just fun opportunities for public activities. I think we've seen in other municipalities, it's really a lot of programming that can happen around the stream to bring people to the waterfront. Those would be, facilitated, I believe, by the county. So, in some municipalities, you have like fish parades and concerts. Aside from that, we had incorporated into the implementation plan a stewardship program, so to foster appreciation, educational opportunities, as well as maintaining the Creek website. So I think that was, Marty, was there anything you wanted to say to close it out before we pass it to Kristen?
Nope.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I know it's very hard to give and also receive a presentation online like that, so I appreciate everyone's patience. And we're now going to get to the point where you get to stand up and stretch and walk around and have some dialogue with those of us who are in the room. Again, my name is Kristen Wilson. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning for Ulster County. And I'm so excited at the turnout and that you're all here to share your thoughts with us. We have, for those of you who are on Zoom, bear with me for a minute while I give instruction to the people who are in the room, and then I will join Europa for the rest of the Zoom session. So when I stop talking, don't go away. I'm going to join Europa in another room and interact with the Zoom participants. So at this point of the meeting, when I finish talking, you'll stand up, stretch, walk around. When you came in, you should have gotten 5 smiley dots. Did everybody get 5 smiley dots? Excellent. If you did not get smiley dots, you can go back out to the registration and get them. And so you can walk around with your smiley dots. You can go to, there are 4 stations around the room, and we'll have Ulster County staff or council members at each of these stations. You can talk about the projects. We will have some plans that, one-pagers where you can read a little bit more about what you just heard about, ask the staff questions. And then between these 4 posters around the room, you'll take your 5 dots, and we want you to choose the 5 projects that are most important to you. So essentially you're helping us prioritize how we're going to spend this $2 million in DEP funding that we have. So we have $2 million to start with this stream management plan, and we want your thoughts. I think that's everything I have to share. So enjoy. Yes, so we also have around the room, if you just give me 1 more minute before you start talking, you'll have lots of time to chat as soon as I'm finished. So we also have a few places where you can write comments on the back of the room. We also have snacks. So there's popcorn and apples, and there's water out here. So enjoy that. And then after the meeting, if you want to go online, we have a website, which is right here listed, and you can go online, and there's additional opportunity for you to write your comments and give your feedback and review the plans. It's all up there as well.
It's a really nice interface with respect to giving you an opportunity to look at each individual project and provide the feedback on that project. It's really kind of, it sounds, when technology works, it works really well. When we looked at the site, and I have to give Kristen credit for setting it up, it's a really nice interface. It's a really good place to go if you really want to do an in-depth look at the project and the plan itself.
And then the other thing I want to say is that we are going to, if you're sitting in a red chair, if you don't mind, we're going to bring them out and stack them up out here. If you don't mind doing that, just so we have a little more space for a while we're talking, and mingling around them, that would be very helpful. If you can't lift a chair, that's totally fine. But if you can help us. And we have 1 question before I let you all go. Emily?
What are we supposed to, there's 3 different maps, so we're supposed to divide our dots between the 3 different lists.
No, the maps show where the projects are. They're just there for reference. So you should divide your dots between the 4 lists. There are 4 lists around the room that have 40+ projects. So you divide your 5 dots between those 4 lists. So you should go to every list around the
We have
room.
5 dots for 40 projects?
Yes, 5 dots.
There's 40 projects.
Yes,
Like this is 1 through 11.
yes,
And then, okay.
yeah.
And then
I'm gonna take 1 more question, and then I'm gonna let you go, and you can ask staff your other questions. The colors do not signify anything. Some of you got all 3 dots, some of you got multiple dots. So.
what the next step is, thank you, that's what I'm asking.
So after, at the end, Ben is going to, after the next step, we are going to prioritize the projects. We will finalize a plan. And we will share that through the website that is here. And then we are going to see what the next step is, how we will spend the $2 million, depending on what the prioritized projects are. Ben will also bring you all back together at the very end, if possible, and explain a little bit more. So I'm gonna let you go and enjoy prioritizing and chatting with staff around the room. I'm gonna go.
Good evening, everyone. For the webinar attendees, I just want to say thank you for sticking around for the listening for the through the in-person instructions. This is Europa McGovern. I'm with the County Department of the Environment. Can everyone hear me? Just send me a message or a thumbs up or something. I just want to make sure the sound is working. Yes. All right, great. Let me start the video here. All right, hi everyone. I'm in a separate room at the same site where the in-person meeting is happening. So what I'm going to do now for the close to 60 of you that are still on the webinar, we wanted to give you an opportunity. I saw some comments coming in that folks on the webinar also wanted the opportunity to vote and provide comments. Kristen Wilson from planning just joined me. We're still doing a screen share of the presentation. So I just got to get that off and then we're going to do the overview. So hold on a moment, everyone.
I might need to go back to.
All right, so here is the projects participate webpage. I just want to remind everyone we sent the link to the webpage in the webinar chat. So first of all, again, thank you for sticking through the in-person presentation. I hope it was informative for everyone. So basically, we want to make sure that everyone that's attending the webinar today also has an opportunity to review the projects, the specific projects that the team went through today. And then we also want to make sure you have an opportunity to provide comments. So that's what Kristen and I are about to walk through with you. So Kristen, here we have it. I didn't get to the sign in instructions yet. So if you want to take it from there.
Sure,
I
great.
have a series of pages open that are all the different project links. So
Okay, great. And so we have about 55 participants still online. Thank you for sticking with us. Really appreciate that. What I'm going to do is go through the presentation. I'll do one by one, and then I will check the Q&A. And then, so if you could please write your answer or your questions in the Q&A. Sorry, I'm breathing because I was running from the other room. If you can ask your questions there, and then at the end of all the presentation, I will, I see some people have their hands raised. I will allow you to speak, and then we can actually speak back and forth. So if you'll just be a little patient, I'll go through the presentation first, and then I'll answer questions live. So first, we wanted to show you, this is a Participate Ulster County site. It's a public engagement site. So we have a lot of information about the strain management plan here. And to provide feedback, we do require you to register. So you haven't covered this, right?
no.
So to register, you go up to the right-hand corner, and actually, Andrea, since you're online, can you just confirm that you're seeing me go up to the right-hand corner here?
I see. Yeah, I see your pointer at the register spot.
Excellent. So you go to register, and actually, I'm wondering, have we shared this
here?
Okay. So after you've clicked register, you should come to a screen that looks like this. It's very, very simple. You will just log in or put in a login name, your email, and your password, and then your zip code, and that's it.
Logged in here.
And then you go to register, and
so now we're logged in, Kristen.
So now you're logged in.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So once you have registered and you're logged in, then you can go to
the website. If you're having a hard time finding it, you can go up here to projects and then climate in the environment. And then you can hit lower Esopus stream management plan.
And I've been putting all the links in the chat, so just.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all of the links are in the
Yes,
Q&A or in the
yes,
chat?
I think in both at different
Okay.
points. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so then once you get here, you are going to go down to the bottom of the website. You're all logged in, and then you can go to feedback on proposed projects. So you click there, and then it has here implementation program projects, and you can go to view all of the ideas. And seems to be taking a while. Okay, there we go. So then it's a little bit fuller of a screen here. And all of the projects that we talked about in the program tonight are listed here. You'll notice that all of them have numbers and the numbers are out of order. That's a function of the website. It does not allow me to order. And in fact, you can sort the projects yourself by oldest or newest, but it's still not going to be in, numerical order. But these numbers do correlate to, if you go up here, it says one-page descriptions of the projects. This is where our plan is, and we have a one-page description of every project. Just taking a moment here.
I may have it open on another tab as
you do.
well.
Okay. This one.
Yes.
So if you click on that link that I was just, you'll come to this full draft implementation program, and you can see here the projects are numbered, number 1. And so these numbers here correlate to the numbers on the last public input page I was just showing you. So you can click on this link, you can read more about the projects before you get to voting. So going back to here, there's a lot of different, so essentially what we've said up here on the top, please give a heart to the top 5 projects. So people in the room are voting with dots and people online are voting with hearts. And it's kind of the same thing. So honestly, you can heart more than 5 projects if you want to online, and there may be some of that happens. But if you can stick to 5 hearts, we'd appreciate it, because that will help us with the prioritization a bit more. And so to heart a project, I don't know, Europa, what's your favorite project?
Oh, I don't know. Well, our office is in Kingston, not far from the Kingston Esopus waterfront behind the plaza. So I think that's a great project.
Okay, so if Europa does that, she adds a heart here, and that number should go up to 2, because it didn't. So
I think
you have
our
another
internet is
favorite?
a bit slow.
Oh, there, yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's gone up to 2. You can also click on comments, and then you can go down here and you can write a comment about the project. If you think it's a horrible idea, you can write that. Or if you think it's a great idea, or you have more that you would like to add to the project idea, you can do that. And then the other thing you can do on this site is there should be a place where you can add your own idea. I don't see that here. Well, I don't know where it is. So later, For some reason, I'm not seeing it now, but there should be a space where it says add your own idea. It's not showing it right now. So I'm not sure why.
And then Kristen,
Um,
remind me, is there a section on the website where you can just put in general comments or questions that aren't project specific?
Yeah, so if you're back onto the main page,
The internet is slow here. We apologize.
And I
okay.
guess, Kristen, while that's loading, I just wanted to mention that there's a number of comments coming in and people with hands raised. And I guess I just wanted to mention that we see that, but I assume that somebody with the county will be able to address those soon.
Yeah, well, I'm almost done with
Yeah.
this part of the presentation, and then we can address comments and questions, and we can even allow folks to speak. So earlier, when I was in the area where you could heart projects, that was under feedback on proposed projects. You can also click on this link, comments on the implementation program. And while we're waiting for that, it's very slow here. While we're waiting for that, you'll also notice that you can ask under that questions tab. You can just ask a question after this meeting, and
Just
we
a
will
reminder,
answer it.
it's not a live chat.
Yeah,
but
it's not live.
Yeah.
But if you ask a question, then we will answer the question either on the website, or we will answer it privately. We will send you an email. So down here, you can see that we have two questions. They're pretty open-ended. We're interested to know if there's anybody out there that wants to participate in one of these projects or lead one of these projects. We're also interested if you have any other just general thoughts or comments about the implementation program. So that's another area where you can just, write some paragraphs if you have a lot to say. So I also just wanted to note that on the main page here, over on the right side, you can go down here towards the bottom. We have all the planning document drafts. So we have drafts of the stream management plan. And then we have down here this draft implementation program, which was, if you click on this link, it leads you to this document that I was showing you earlier. So that is a summary of how to find out more about the ideas. And let's see if I'm missing anything. And if not, then I will go to questions and answers. Oh, I just, the one thing I should also mention is that we will be accepting comments until April 11th. So that's 2 weeks from now. So you have 2 weeks to look over this and put in your hearts or put in your comments. And also you can ask questions at any time, even after the April 11th date. You can ask questions about the plan in that question area that I was showing you earlier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the questions, and I will answer them verbally. And then I will allow folks who have raised hands to speak.
So I think some of these first ones, hopefully we actually addressed as we went through the registering on the Participate website process that we just walked through, right? And then how you can provide comments both generally and on specific projects.
Okay, so well, there is one question here from Kathy about 90 people that are voting on the projects, and then the rest who are on Zoom, you do get a vote. You vote by using the hearts online. So that's how you vote. And even people who did not attend the meeting have an opportunity to engage. We will also have a recording of this webinar on this same website that I was just showing you, so that you can share it with friends or family, colleagues, and they can vote too. I'm not sure where is this specific section. I'm not sure what that question refers to. It's from Al. In other words, where to ask my question. I think Al is asking about where to ask questions. And again, you can go to the Participate Ulster site, and there is a question tab down at the bottom, along with the feedback and the comments. So you can always ask a question there at any time. The next question is, how do these projects affect bordering property owners in the 9W Glenary Falls area? I'm actually going to ask if Marty can answer that question, because I think you know the projects a little better than I do.
Sure. So these are really just ideas at this point. So no, nobody's like public access, for instance. We don't have a drawing that shows like where that would be, or a trail, or even is it a walking path, or a kayak takeout or something like that. We're not even that far yet. And so any project, especially in there where would have to impact or potentially impact property owners, they'd have to be project partner in it. So it can't happen without cooperation or participation from at least one or more of the property owners there. And that's really the same with any of these projects, right? That abut private property.
So I would just add to that question was asked by Cheryl, that if you have any specific concerns, you certainly can make comments on the projects that relate to the Glenary Falls area, and share those concerns. Or if you have specific things that you'd like to see happen with those projects, you can share that as well. The next question is, will you be sharing the potential costs and benefits of the project so we can make a choice based on overall benefit related to the cost structure? Obviously, I would prefer to get the most bang for our buck as it relates to wildlife and flood risks. So when you go to this planning document, over on the right side, it says planning and capital costs, and there's sort of a rating system. So you can see that for every project. And if you actually scroll all the way to the very end of this document, there's a whole Excel sheet that, if you're somebody who really wants to get into how we're rating the projects, there is a whole section on, I believe on cost here. Yeah, here. So there's a column on how it rates with cost. I mentioned earlier that we have $2 million in funding from the DEP for this implementation. We are not exactly sure how we will be distributing that. And that's part of why we're doing this public meeting, is to get some idea of what what projects should be prioritized. We see, and we've talked about those $2 million being matched by other funding. So for example, there may be a project that has a high capital cost, and maybe that project is going to cost $5 million, for example, bluff stabilization, or some of the other, kind of heavy duty engineering projects could be very expensive to actually construct or implement. And perhaps what we will do is we will use some of the $2 million for the design costs of that project, and then look for other funding for the capital cost. So, and there are a lot of grant funding sources for water quality through the DEC, through the Department of State, through many other state agencies and federal agencies that may be able to fund these projects beyond the $2 million. So we were really looking at the $2 million as seed funding to get the projects off the ground. The next question is, must voting be completed today? No, you have until April 11th. So you have 2 weeks to do the voting. Can we have a copy of the presentation today? Yes, we will share the presentation on the Participate Ulster site over on the right side under documents. So let's see, we'll go back to over here. The under the planning document drafts, we'll share the presentation for today, and we'll also share a recording of this presentation.
We may not be publishing that tonight, caveat, but probably tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, tomorrow or maybe Monday. Okay, I think we have all the questions, open questions that are on the Q&A answered. I am now going to go to raised hands. And I just see one from Stuart Lee, and I will allow you to speak. So I'm going to allow you to speak. If anybody else would like to speak, please raise your hand, and Stuart, you should be able to speak.
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry. I had tried to react when you asked for reaction and hit the hand thing. I wrote a question about the improved access in segment 9, management zone 9, where there was formerly improved access at the O&W rail trail. That particular project is no longer listed, I believe, and I was just curious why that was, and whether the potential for kayak launching there, where the river comes so close to the road. There are 2 pullouts that have been used that way right now, and I just didn't know if that was still something you were thinking of.
Yeah, it's still listed. I believe it's help me out here.
I'm trying to look at what I have a printout here, trying to see what the project number is for you. I know I saw it today as well too.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Andrea or Marty.
Yeah, I can't do a word search with a printed copy of something.
Yeah,
Here we
I
go.
saw it as well, and I'm looking on the map right now, but
It's project number 17.
there for public access at O&W trail parking.
Yeah,
it's still there? 17?
Still, yep, project number 17.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so you should be able to see that here on the screen now.
I'm sorry, I missed it looking through. That's fine. Thanks so much. I just thought that I couldn't see exactly where that was, and it looked like it might be near the New Beginnings place, but it's a small point. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I'm going to move on to Mary O'Donnell. I'm going to allow you to speak now.
Yes, hi, Mary
Mary.
O'Donnell, Saugerties. I was questioning the project that I noticed was presented this evening regarding the Cantine Dam in Saugerties. And there was the project, two of the considerations. One was to perhaps lower the dam, and another consideration would be to remove the dam. My question is, when did that become a project? Because at the last meeting, I don't recall that being considered. It's the first I'm hearing of it, so I'm curious as to why that is a project.
Yeah, I think the words removing the dam might be overstated. I think that the idea of that project is to do a study of the dam. That I think is actually something that would be done by the federal government, Marty, or the DEC. That is a responsibility of them to study the safety of the dam. So I don't know that removing the dam is really on, I don't know that that's really on the county's mind. But studying the dam more and understanding its impact on the river is on our mind to understand more about how the dam is impacting the river. And I don't know, Marty, if you have anything else to say more about that.
Yeah, it's not really listed as a project. So, I mean, feasibility of, or like a dam safety inspection, those are kind of the responsibility of the dam owner. And then, whether or not removal is an option, you have to go through a feasibility process and, public input process and all that. It's pretty involved. But yeah, we didn't talk specifically about removing the dam. Not specifically, no.
Okay, yeah, I did hear those two, I did hear those two comments made about perhaps lowering the water or removing the dams. So I'm pleased to hear that that is not exactly what your attention is. So as I understand it, that project or that proposal came from Ulster County, from the county government, and not from any input from the citizens or the town of Saugerties or the village of Saugerties officials. So am I clear that it was a county consideration? And the other point is that the water was lowered. The dam was lowered maybe a couple of years ago, not that long ago, for an inspection. So that's something you may be aware of or may not be aware of. So just in summary, it's the county's, it's a project that the county it has proposed.
Yeah, to be
Oh, sorry, go
really,
ahead.
yeah,
Kristen.
to be really clear, I don't think that the county is not proposing to remove the dam. I think the project is to study the dam more. Yeah, and Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to kind of go back to something that Marty was saying before, is that these are just ideas. So there's no plans to remove or alter the dam at this point. There was an activity that involved a local flood analysis downstream of the dam, or to assess impacts on the stream function. And we can get you that number, but as far as the origin of how that came to be, I don't think I can speak to that. It wasn't, it may have come in through public comment. So yeah, Kristen, put that over to you. It wasn't a project that somebody had specifically injected. Even as far as a project, it's more of an idea of a study.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the idea of the study would be to determine the stability of the dam, the structure of the dam. Would that be the purpose of a study, to understand that it's not compromised in any way, that it's safe? Would that be the purpose of the study? Would it have to do with the silt and the buildup? What would be the purpose of the study?
Yeah,
Well,
It could
oh,
be
go
any,
ahead.
could be any and all of those things, sure.
Yeah.
It depends on what whoever's paying for the study wants to study. So there is no study right now, and there hasn't been any discussion of a study. So until such time as a study is proposed, everything at this point would be speculation.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you.
I just want to add that discussions within staff at Ulster County is that we're not we don't have our eye on removing the dam. It's more about having the dam be evaluated for safety and flood analysis, as written here. But I encourage you to provide comments on that and any ideas or thoughts you have about that online for sure. I
Okay,
appreciate
thanks
it.
again. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to Achva Stein. I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead, Achva. You should be able to speak now.
I just was wondering if we can get a copy of the presentation and show it to other people.
Yes, we will have the presentation available online on the website that I was just showing earlier. So it'll be, if you go to the Participate Ulster site, it'll be located over under the planning document drafts. There will be a link here. I will also send a follow-up email to everybody who attended this Zoom, and I'll provide links directly to the presentation and the PowerPoint so that you're able to share that with your friends and family and others.
And thank you for such a wonderful study, because it doesn't happen all over the United States. It's very specific. So thank you very much.
Thank you for participating.
The whole process is very interesting. And I participate in California and in Boston and in many places, but this is really very well done.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move on to Andrea Snelton. I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead, Andrea. You should be able to speak now. Okay.
Can you hear
Andrea.
me?
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
hear you now.
Okay. I'm asking about the Cantine Dam, of lowering or removing it, if it will or will not happen. But what about the residents that live on the flats of Lighthouse Drive that deal with tidal flooding? I mean, I'm going to place my dots, but you know, I've lived here my whole life and it's really getting bad. So what are our options for our livelihood down here in our homes?
On the flats underneath the dam?
Yes, on Lighthouse Drive.
Okay. I don't know if Marty has any comments about that specific area. But I do encourage you to you can add your comments not only on the projects themselves, but on the implementation program in general.
Is there anything that can help us down here, or is it just like global warming and the tides are getting higher, or can any of this project money go to help us down here?
Well, I can just chime in just for a brief moment. I'm very familiar with that road actually,
Yeah.
and the flooding issues over the years. You know, just from personal experience and, you know, and from some of the adaptation planning work that we at the Department of the Environment have done. I mean, we've just been kind of looking at more broadly climate change impacts, right, in county-wide and regionally. And one thing is that, you know, sea level rise, it's already risen about a foot in the last century. And it's predicted to rise up to another 5 to 6 feet in the worst case scenario by the end of the century. So I think that some of that that's, you know, on Lighthouse Drive, I would say, right, that's more tidal flooding, right? That's more from sea, could be some of the sea level rise, right? Like the high tides are just getting ever so slightly higher during, you know, heavy flooding and storm events. They're getting even that much higher. So, you know, I don't know that there's an easy solution for that, but of course I'll let our consultant team weigh in as well.
Yeah, but what do the homeowners that live on Lighthouse Drive do? You know, it's our livelihood. What's the future?
Well, I think county folks nailed it. You're living at the mouth of a river on another bigger coastal river. And, we're talking about twice as much rainfall in another 40, 50 years as we're getting now in some areas of the country. Sea level rise is going to continue. And, it's dire for a lot of people, you're not in a spot where you can build dikes or anything like that because you're so close to the river. And so your options are kind of limited.
I guess I was wondering if Kristen, or if the information could be provided for the broader hazard mitigation process. That, so I think the tidal effects was super relevant, but the focus of this particular study was the inland flooding. So that wasn't something that was assessed as part of this, but I think there's an opportunity to provide your comments. And I think maybe the people from the county can provide the information about any larger coastal flooding mitigation process that's happening. Because there's a lot of people that are facing that challenge, in coastal areas across the country. So.
Dennis.
I get it.
Dennis
Is there
Doyle is
any-
also joining us. So
I think that, one of the things we can do, and you have a really good model to your neighbor to the south with the city of Kingston, which has done a lot of resiliency studies. So the idea of thinking about resiliency and moving in that direction for those areas, those titles areas and sororities is something we can help you with. But it is, as the consultants have indicated, it is a much larger problem that that it devolves a lot of the communities along the waterfront communities along the Hudson.
Is there any help from FEMA to like raise your home or anything to get it up out of the area that you know of?
Well, unfortunately, in general, FEMA's work is after the disaster. They'll give you money to do those kinds of things, but not before. But there are general ways you can look at things that you can do to protect your home, particularly with respect to floodproofing, where you're most likely to receive flooding, and that's material use, and that's those types of things. And most of those houses down there, as I recall, don't have basements. And there's also elevation. What we're seeing in Shandaken is literally people coming in and putting and elevating their homes. And in some places in Shandaken, they're going up 8 or 10 feet to get their homes out of harm's way. And you saw this along after Irene and Katrina, as well. I'm sorry, Irene, and what happened down in Sandy on the shore. So that's, so the good news about that is that disaster recovery monies, when a community is declared a disaster area, there are disaster recovery monies that come in. The availability of those funds are spread out. They're not available, they're not just available to the area where disaster occurred. And I think the village of Saugerties participated in the hazard mitigation plan.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, that maybe we could send the link as reference, the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which will ultimately be a FEMA approved plan, right? Right now it's at the State Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services review, and then it'll go to FEMA for review and approval. And yes, Saugerties participated, both the town and the village, I believe.
But the idea that help is coming soon, or it would be significant, is probably something that I would not, in terms of trying to manage expectations, I would say that's a very optimistic view.
Okay, so bottom line, the residents that live on the flats of Lighthouse Drive that deal with tidal flooding and hurricanes, I mean, we're kind of like stuck with where we're at.
I don't know
Correct.
whether I wouldn't say stuck. I mean, you do have flood insurance, you do have other kinds of things that you can do. There's a community rating system that you can do. I wouldn't say stuck there. You could request a buyout program, but I would suspect that most of you don't want to be bought out. So, you know, if there's a certain logic if you living in harm's way.
What do you do about a buyout program? How do you proceed with that?
There was in New York City has a buyout program up in the mountains that essentially values the house prior to any flood damage, appraises the house and pays you to essentially buys the house, and then the house is bought out, it's demolished, and then there is a conservation easement over the property that's taken. Those are generally for some areas, they're usually done with respect to where there's significant repeated flood loss. And they're usually done in response to homeowners and or areas requesting it.
Okay, so what is that contact information if all of us down here on the flats wanted to proceed with that information and see what's going on with that?
So the programs generally come through legislative initiative. And those are things that you can start to have a conversation with village officials, correct? That's village authorities with villages.
Correct.
Yeah, and then request that, you know, that money is be made available either through disaster recovery funds or special state legislation to think about a buyout program in these particular areas. The other thing you can think about is I mean, given where I'm probably looking at economic values down there, to think about actually elevation and floodproofing.
Andrea, I appreciate your question, and I think I have to, I've noted your name, and I can make sure that you have access to us after the meeting to ask more detailed questions on this. I do have about 5 or 6 more people with raised hands, and we only have about 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure that I give other people an opportunity to ask questions. But you can certainly email me or Dennis or Europa at the county, and we can continue the conversation. Does that work?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm gonna go on to, it's just user. You have your hand named or your hand raised, and I've allowed you to speak.
Hey, that worked. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I thought you could see my name on the other end. My name is Kelly Myers.
Okay.
Okay. I had 2 questions for you. As far as one of them was Riverkeeper has been doing testing at the Sardi's Village Beach for the past couple of years. And last year, Enterococcus testing failed at the Village Beach on 4 out of 6 occasions. So people really here haven't been able to swim. Is there any plans to work on that as a project? Or would you even consider funding a village pool or something like that? Because essentially people can't swim here in the village. Our family hasn't swam in about 2 years. The creek's been just too gross.
So Kelly, one of the things I would say is you could make that, there's an opportunity to add projects. You could make that an added project.
Okay.
We've had some discussions at the county level with respect to water quality testing.
Yep.
Beyond just Enterococcus. So we have a better understanding in particular where it's coming from. I don't recall your Riverkeepers testing, but the question then becomes is it before or after urbanized areas? Is there can we sort of think about if there's a source and then look at that source? But that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, the Riverkeeper testing is on their website.
Yeah.
You can have a look if you want.
Yeah, well, we interface with Riverkeeper on a regular basis.
Yep, I expect you would. Okay, so that was, I think a lot of that has to do with many of the homes along the creek were former camps, and then they turned into full-time residences. And those septic systems, when they get oversaturated, they just leach into the creek. So a lot of homes are leaching here. And I think that's what your problem is.
One thing I do want to add is that we do have a water quality monitoring program as a project. It's project number 42. So
Okay.
if you feel strongly about that, maybe add a heart to that project or add some comments. And yeah, did you have something else
No,
to say,
that's great.
Dennis?
Oh, that's really good. Okay.
Yeah.
Great,
So
thank
that
you.
would be like river-wide water quality monitoring program and to try and figure out where the contamination is coming from.
Yep.
And get a better sense.
You got to
of-
pinpoint it in order to
Yeah.
stop it. I get that. It sounds good. That's one second question is that my husband and I are property owners on the creek, and due to the releases and some flooding events as well, we've had really significant erosion, to the point where a lot of soil has just washed away. Will there be any resources for private property owners to restore their property?
I think there's a vegetative buffer program in the recommended programs, and if you want to add a comment to that should be directed towards private property owners that have lost shrunning to make sure that they don't lose any more, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, if you there's a number of different vegetative buffer options, and I think there's maybe 5 different ones throughout the river. So you can maybe heart the one that's closest to your property, your area.
Right. The
Yeah.
area for us, the area that washed away was an area that we use for recreation to be able to get like in and out of kayaks and things like that. So I don't necessarily want a lot of plants there because I want to use my land. Would there be any opportunity to have something like a bulkhead or something that would just hold the soil back?
Those are not recommendations in the plan, and generally when you talk to geomorphologists, they're not keen on bulkheads.
Yeah, the thing is that the vegetative buffers, they and Marty can probably explain this better than I can, but there may be vegetative buffers that would be beneficial even if they're around on surrounding areas to reduce the erosion.
So even a
But when
portion
you
of it.
start, yeah, when you start
Okay.
putting in bulkheads, then Marty's going to be able to explain this better. But my very basic understanding is that when the water hits your bulkhead, then it bounces off and it'll cause erosion farther down the river on somebody else's land. So that's why it's not recommended. But Marty, if you want to explain that more scientifically, you could.
Sure, yeah, sad you weren't outside when I was coming by. I could have taken a look at it, but and maybe we could communicate offline and point where you are. But if a lot of people obviously in the river have on some stabilization, right? And so there are various ways of doing that besides bulkheads. Certainly, more environmentally sound and river-friendly ways of stabilizing the bank. So we could certainly have a discussion about that. How you pay for that is kind of the question, that you start adding rock to banks and doing bioengineering solutions and things like that, they get expensive. So it kind of has to be done on a case-by-case basis. And I don't know what the county can fill you in on the resources that are available to you through them potentially, or where you live. But there are cost share programs, for instance, where you can get work done and where you pay part of the cost, and a grant program might pay the rest if you do more river friendly treatment. I don't know if you guys want to add any other that.
No, I just would say that, the idea of reporting your bank loss would be helpful to us because we still have an environmental impact statement that is being done by DEP. And
Okay.
so figuring that out and make sure that everybody's aware of that is different. I mean, this stream management plan looked holistically at the stream and didn't see a lot of individual bank stabilization issues. But the idea that individual property owners are losing portions of very valuable land to them is something I think that would be helpful with respect to DEP's environmental work.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Just quick. Sorry, I know I don't want to hold everybody up. As far as reporting that loss, how would you do that?
Just
Or
put
where
it
could
in
I look?
just put it in the in a comment section to us on the plan.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks
That's
for
it.
participating.
Yep.
I'm
Have a
gonna
good
move
night.
on. We have 3 more people with questions, so I'll move on. Mary O'Donnell, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Actually, not Mary, Margaret Powers. Sorry about that, Mary. I think you already asked your question, right? Yeah, I think she did. All right, so I'm going on to Margaret Powers. Margaret, you should be able to speak now.
Margaret?
Sometimes it takes them a minute.
Margaret?
Margaret, are you still here?
Hey, I'm sorry. There was an
there we go.
unmute that I missed.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute.
Yes. Okay, I have a question about some technical thing and then a question about projects. So the first is, I think I understood that there's a correlation between the invasive species like the milfoil and siltation or sedimentation, turbidity or something of that sort in the water. Is that correct? Did I hear that it was in the, I think something Marty was saying about
Yeah.
this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's bit of a chicken and the egg. It can be. So sometimes you get sedimentation and then that is a good situation for things like milfoil to grow. And then that causes more siltation and more invasive species. So it's kind of a, yeah,
Okay.
feeds
Now,
on each other.
okay. So I understood that the projects that are proposed for specific projects for the area from Legs Mill north did not specifically address anything to do with the sedimentation and the invasive species. They seem to be specifically access to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the invasive species and the sedimentation issues are river wide, right? So they could encompass any of those areas, right? Not excluding any areas from that.
Okay.
Yep.
So are there particular projects on the kind of the basin wide arena that would be particularly worthwhile to do to find a solution for the invasive species and the water quality issues?
I think it's where those siltation issues and invasive plant issues are worse, right? So, you know, Phragmites down by the mouth, and then siltation issues where you have upstream of the dam and upstream of the bedrock controls the falls, and in those gravel pit areas too.
So if the projects that are proposed to address water quality are implemented, the specific ones that I'd be interested in would be the ones upstream from Legs Mill. Is, am I kind of getting the connection here that that's where I'd be looking, what I'm looking for is what projects out of a wealth of wonderful projects do I give my, give my heart to here? And I'm looking for those that would have the most benefit for the questions of invasive species and the water quality, water sediment and sedimentation.
Yeah, I'm just
Well,
looking at-
any of the projects that are invasive species removal projects, I think there's maybe 4 or 5 of them. And then also you can, on the online plan towards the bottom, I'm sorry, it's not showing up very well here on my screen. You can zoom in and out, but there are 3 maps. And so if you're looking at a specific area, you said above Legs Mill?
Well, I'm thinking that the area I'm most concerned about is from Legs Mill to the mouth of the Esopus. So it would be projects that would happen either right in that area or upstream from it that would then have a benefit further downstream.
Yeah, so I think those projects are on the first map, like projects 1 through, I want to say 1 through
Well, there's one
1 through 11, I think, are the
Yeah.
projects that are in your area.
And the one,
Okay.
the one that's involving the Saugerties Beach is one that, there's location in that area around the Saugerties Beach, and that's behind the dam. So
Right.
And then the dam project as well, to start to think about how do we can perhaps do work on the dam.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like project 7 is invasive species management at Saugerties Village Beach. Yeah, so I think you want to take a look at the first like 11 projects.
Okay, that's a help. That narrows my scope down a little bit. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I know it's a lot to look at. I've been staring at it for 3 days and I'm still trying to figure them all out.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
I think
Okay,
16 number 16 is a good one for her also.
Okay, excellent. I think I'm going to move on to Aurelia Barraco. Allow you to speak. Aurelia, you should
Hi,
be.
can you hear me?
Uh,
Do you hear me?
Yes,
yep,
ma'am.
I can hear you.
Hi. Hi, I'm very excited. I live on the Esopus and I'm very excited for all of the projects. What I'm really curious about is what does the timeline look like? I know you said we get to vote up for the next couple of weeks. Can we expect to see any of this happen this summer, this fall, or are we really looking at things that'll start next year?
We're looking at finishing the plan, the stream management plan and the implementation plan by the early summer. So that's when we will have finalized this implementation plan. And then I think we're looking at projects starting.
Well, I think some of the planning projects or policy projects that are in there, like watershed coordinator or manager and those types of things, can start within a budget year, which begin probably next year sometime. But anything that involves construction involves environmental work. We're also probably going to that we need project sponsors. That's in terms of who's going to do what, and then the next piece of this is looking at additional funding, because why in the past 2 million sounds like a lot of money. It is literally no money. So the idea is essentially to take a look at the other sources of funds for water quality work and stream management work that are available. And those discussions are ongoing with the Department of Environmental Conservation. Again, in terms of managing expectations, I would think that it's going to be a while.
It's gonna be a while. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. I was just curious.
All right.
Thank you, I appreciate it. This is a great project. I hope we get to do at least a few.
Yeah, well, we'll get started. It's definitely a long-term watershed management is a long-term thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to Diane Breakstone Coelho. I think I maybe said your name right, or maybe not, but you should be able to speak now.
I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. I apologize in advance. This is not your particular area, and also for being a little uninvolved the last few years. But about 8 years ago, a study was done about why the creek looks like hot chocolate. And at that time, we were told that despite what everybody thought, it really wasn't about the releases from the reservoir. And now I read in the paper that people are talking about that again. I'm just wondering, was that study wrong, or is this, I guess this is called the turbidity, how the water is so dirty looking.
I'm gonna take a crack at this, but it's a highly, it's highly technical, A, and B is the simple thing to say is that turbidity in the creek has a number of different sources, but the prolonged turbidity in the creek, the stuff that lasts weeks into weeks, is related to the discharges or releases from the Shokan Reservoir. Other turbidity in the creek that are not related to releases, remember that there are a significant number of tributaries to the creek that contribute turbidity as well. They run through the same geological formations that essentially are extant within the upper Esopus, and they're contributing to turbidity to the creek. So I don't know what study you're referring to, but if it's long-term, then it's probably related to releases. If it's shorter term without spills or releases from the reservoir, then it's related to the discharges into the stream from turbidity or turbidity from the stream itself.
Thank you. Okay, real easy question now. Did you say you were going to send us an email about, because I'm not going to the page where I can post my smiley faces, or hearts. You're going to send us an email again with the instructions how to do that?
Yeah, I will send a follow-up email with the links. I didn't say that I would write out instructions, but
Okay, the link, yeah.
with the links, you'll be okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I can share that with other people who are concerned with the creek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we encourage you to share that with as many people as you can. And we'll be taking feedback until April 11th. So 2 weeks from today.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. One more. We have one more person here. If you do have your hand raised and you've already asked a question, do you mind just lowering it? I just want to make sure that I got everybody. I have John here. I'm going to allow John to talk. John, you should be able to talk now.
John? If you're muted, unmute. So.
Sometimes it takes him a little while.
We get it. Is there Johnson?
Okay, I'm not hearing anything from John, so I think that this wraps up. I'm going to just check our Q&A and just see if there's anything else written here. Okay, actually, we have a question from John here on the Q&A that I'm happy. It says, which Projects will improve the water quality, which in turn will help the wildlife, fish, turtles, frogs, snakes, and clams. So I think John's asking about prioritization of projects. I don't know, Marty or Andrea, do you have any, or anybody here have any opinions about which projects will most likely improve water quality that will help
Yeah,
wildlife?
probably like some of the other people wondering about where to put the stickers. And I think, you know, if you ask me, what would be the most direct impact to wildlife and fish? It would be buffers, the gravel pit areas, or restoration of gravel pit areas, and after that, I mean, a lot of them are more indirect. Just looking at the list here. Yeah, invasive species management. Any of those three, certainly direct impacts. All of them are going to have a benefit, except for maybe the recreational ones, but all the other ones are going to have an indirect benefit.
Some of the stormwater ones also ranked pretty favorably with respect to improving water quality.
Yep.
So we have quite a few questions here, but we are at 8:05, so we're getting a little late. I think we'll answer one more question. And then the rest of these questions, I will transfer to answering them on the Participate Ulster site. So people can continue to ask questions there, and I will add some of these questions and the answers there. So I'm gonna answer one last question here on the Zoom from PEM, P-E-M. The levee behind the Kingston Plaza was rated unaccredited by FEMA. How will this be addressed for the waterfront project? And I'm going to direct that to Dennis.
So,
or Marty.
accreditation of levies are always a fun topic. But the one behind the plaza has essentially been removed from its accreditation with respect to lack of freeboard. And there was an entire study looking at that levee system. Freeboard requirements are essentially.
I'll put cream on my fungus.
Yeah,
sorry.
I think it's 3 feet, and it had something in the less than 18 inches. And so that lost its accreditation. And so where we are right now with that is that the city of Kingston is looking, there's something you can do with a deficient levee that allows it to go into a different kind of flood zone that removes some of the restrictions relative to flood insurance and elevation, but the people that build it behind those levees are literally taking a risk. The issue right now with something called the deficient levee certification is that levee ties into I-587, which is a constructed federal highway, and there is not a interpretation yet by FEMA, and the city would need to pursue this, that the tie-in to I-587, that I-587 meets levee criteria. It has drainage through it, it has openings in it, and it may not have the necessary structure to be considered a levee. So the city, property owners in the plaza, the county, and others have been sort of looking at this year over year for a lot of different years in terms of trying to see if there is a solution. But right now, we're not in a way thinking that there is.
Great. So we do have quite a few more questions. Again, I will answer these on the Participate Ulster site. I do notice that we have one question about how to vote, and I'm just going to show that one more time. You go to the Participate Ulster site, you scroll to the bottom, And then you click here on the feedback on proposed projects. It takes you to this area, and you can view all ideas. And then here is where you can vote and put your hearts on particular projects and comments. And again, you must register up here in the right-hand corner. Europa is registered to be able to add your comments.
And can we just point out the link to the full projects document as well? That may be an easier format for folks to see all
Yeah.
the projects in one place.
So once you get here, there is a link to the one-page description of the projects, and that's the actual the draft implementation program. So you can go there and you can take a look, read through that document before you do your voting. So I think with that, we're gonna adjourn this meeting for tonight. I really appreciate everyone's participation. I see we still have 30% participants on the webinar. That tells me that, you know, if people haven't dropped off, that means they're really interested in this project. And it's been a pleasure to be part of it, and really exciting to see this project evolve through the entire Lower Esopus Creek corridor. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Okay, so bye, Andrea and Marty. Thank you. Ooh.